welcome back to the ConceptBase channel. This is a continuation of the previous video with the running number 30 about defining simple rules and constraints to an employee model. The source files and the documentation is on this website, which I will link in the video description too. So the example is about an employee database. Details are here. So this is the schema of the database. And now let's go to the script for this video. So the topic is using more high-level rules and constraints to define certain semantics of this model. In particular here, that the attribute salary is necessary, and later also that the boss, that we make the transitive closure of the boss relation of employees. Good, so let's start and tell the schema. Now, in the previous video, we defined a constraint that the salary shall be necessary. That is a constraint for all E of employee. If there exists an X of integer, that X is the salary of E, then this constraint is fulfilled. So there must be at least one salary of an employee. So rather than doing that by hand, we define a generic constraint. The condition to look at is this one: if X is an instance of class C, then there must be at least some Y in another class D such that X M Y is true. So M is the type of the name of the attribute, and this attribute here is defined by a so-called proposition like this, and that proposition is declared to be necessary. So further details are in the user manual of ConceptBase. I will also include a link to that. So let's tell this generic constraint here. Now we have the definition here. That's the content of the database. Now let's make the salary attribute necessary. It's sufficient to just add the so-called attribute category necessary to it, and we tell that if we now load the employee, we see that a new constraint is generated, which is actually exactly what we would have expected to have modeled explicitly. So, but now it is generated from the generic necessary constraint, which is highly reusable for other attributes. So let's define some instances. So the same database as in video number 30. Definition starts here. Paste it and tell it currently fulfills the constraint. So let's load an arbitrary employee, Felix, and remove the salary of Felix. That's an until operation, and that is indeed violating the constraint that we have just defined in a generic way, the necessary constraint. So this is rejected. Removing a salary is rejected. Let's define an employee Mary with no salary and no other attributes, this is also violating the constraint. So now we have salary as a necessary attribute. Let's go back to our script. The next definition that we are looking at is the big boss relation of manager. In our original video number 30, we had explicitly defined a rule that defines big boss to be the transitive closure of boss. So this is boss between two manager. When we make the transitive closure, then the source and the target of the relation must have the same type, which is manager. In this case, rather than defining that explicitly, we again define a generic set of rules. So first we define a new type of relation is transitive closure of, and then two rules. We only have to look at this one, that is translating the non-transitive relation to its transitive closure part, MB, and this is now actually making the transitive closure. So this is copying the one relation to the new relation, and this is making it transitive in a linear recursive way. So that's the definition. Now let's use that definition and define first the boss relation of manager. So that is now boss between two managers, and then big boss, which is supposed to be the transitive closure. Tell that, and now use that. So we define the big boss relation of manager to be the transitive closure of the boss relation of manager. Tell that. If we now look at manager, we see two generated rules, which are exactly what we expect. This is copying the non-transitive relation to this transitive counterpart, and this is then making it transitive, the other rule here. Good, let's visualize that. So we have manager having the boss and big boss relations. Let's select the two here. So they are connected by this transitive closure relation, and that is, this boss attribute is actually specializing the original boss attribute that went from employee to boss. So we cannot make such a relation directly transitive. We specialize it, the boss relation, to its manager specialization, and then each boss fact between two managers is also a boss fact between the manager as an employee and the boss of that manager. So this is also a subclass of employee. Good, so that concludes this little demo. The purpose was to show that some of these constraints that we saw in video number 30, ConceptBase video number 30, can in fact be regarded as being generated by so-called metaformulas for necessary attributes and for the transitive closure of relations. More in the links to this video. Thanks and see you next time.